It's a very rainy day in Manchester. I'm not going to go anywhere. I'm going to stick inside, I think, with my books. Morning, everyone. My hair's sticking up like a maniac. I'm sorry. um, I thought I'd return to these shelves in my study and go through some more of the rainbow books. Okay, here I am, messy hair, pile of books. I told you that these Dune books from the 60s had the best covers, and they really do. They're so evocative and colourful. And again, how could they make a film that was so grey and so dull? I don't know. One of my big guilty pleasures since I was about 13 are Star Trek novelizations. No, not novelizations. Well, partly novelizations. The original novels, though, mostly, of the 70s and 80s especially. And honestly, if Jeremy puts on Star Trek on the telly, I leave the room. I'm sick of it on TV. And the return series, the recent ones, sick of them as well, sick of all of it. But the books, for some reason, still lure me back. I don't know what it is. Some of them are really peculiar. This one, Spock Messiah, by Theodore R. Cogswell and Charles A. Spano from 1977. I read this from Aycliffe Library in our town, and it's so peculiar, and of course related to, in a way, to Dune and Dune Messiah. It was that era of very, very peculiar science fiction in the 70s that I found alluring and peculiar and a bit creepy. Another series, another guilty pleasure are the Hardy Boys. Sorry, the Hardy Boys isn't that one. The Hardy Boys is elsewhere. I didn't bring the Hardy Boys. Never mind. This is a series that I discovered only latterly. I never read these as kids. As a kid, I don't think. The Three Investigators, supposedly written by Alfred Hitchcock. He never wrote a word of any of it. He just lent his image to it and his persona. They were introduced, these adventures about kids zooming about solving mysteries, by Hitchcock himself, apparently. A few words from Alfred Hitchcock, beginning, "Greetings and salutations. It is a pleasure to have you join me for another adventure with that remarkable trio of lads who called themselves the Three Investigators." And he would introduce all of these books in this style, sounding to my ears like Lemony Snicket in a series of unfortunate events. And I'm sure that Daniel Handler is aware of these Alfred Hitchcock books and used that tone, this slightly sour, cynical, articulate old duffer introducing the adventures of the three children. This time, a nervous lion leads them into a tangled web of mystery and excitement. I imagine that you've already met the three investigators and know that they are Jupiter Jones, Bob Andrews, and Peter Crenshaw, all of Rocky Beach, California, a small community on the shores of the Pacific not far from Hollywood. But just in case this is your first meeting with the three, let me add that they make their headquarters in a mobile home trailer cleverly hidden from sight in the Jones salvage yard. This fabulous junkyard is owned by Jupiter's aunt and uncle, for whom the trio works to earn extra spending money when they're not busy with their investigations. Of course, if it was Lemony Snicket, it would be telling you all terrible things about how they live a life of misery and penury, and they're actually at the mercy of an evil aunt and uncle. Enough of introductions. On with the case. Our lion is growing nervous. They're just irresistible. Exactly the kind of books that they would have in school libraries, and you would read the whole series. I don't think I read them as a kid. I think the Hardy Boys and Nancy Drew was as fine to this genre as I got. Something I did read obsessively, that I will talk about at any given opportunity. is Albert the Dragon, who appeared in, I think, 4 books. Rosemary Weir, lots and lots of books about kids who discover magical creatures, going back to the Samiad from Edith Nesbit, or kids who become friends with strange grown-ups with magical powers like Mary Poppins or Wurzel Gummidge or Stig of the Dump. Albert the Dragon, in his cave by the sea, is a particular case because he's so funny and waspish and kind of slightly queeny as well. And there was something about the sense of humour in all these kind of slightly uppity characters that we meet in this series that I adored. They were published by Grasshopper Books, who were really unusual in the 70s. And I discovered this latterly in recent years, that they were big on publishing kids' books in translation from all over the world. And that was quite unusual. That was their big thing. And the ones I've managed to collect up through eBay and whatever, book shopping, have been fascinating. And, well, there's one about cats in Italy I will dig out and talk about soon. This is the kind of fantastic book. It makes me want to sit down and just read the whole thing out, because it's one of those books that's impossible to come by now. Anyway, back to the shelf. Speaking of Wurzel, this is my favourite Wurzel Gummidge book. I bought them all, the ones that Barbara Youth and Todd wrote and that were republished when I was a kid, and the ones by Willis Hall based on his TV scripts for the show. This, Gummidge dressed as Santa riding backwards on a cow, a slightly pink cow, is my favourite cover of all of them. I had such high hopes for the kind of recent Mackenzie Crook TV show, and I think lots of things in it were done nice, but like many people in TV, he wrote his own stories. He didn't go back to the original stories, and it was a shame because the TV episodes had no story to them. They just had characters doing their thing. The stories in the books, the original books, were so twisted and peculiar and episodic, very like Travers's Mary Poppins books, where, yes, they don't add up to a whole heap of anything when you step away from them. They're just episodic adventures, but they're perfect. And, mess with them at your peril, I think, people who adapt things for TV. I'm really fed up of people doing things for TV and they've half read the book. They've read the back of the book. I felt that about a few things that we've had in recent years, but don't get me started. Cozy mysteries are one of my favourite things, and I discovered the genre properly in 2007. Now they're all the thing. I've championed them for years. I've written them. People in this country in publishing would say, they'll never catch on. Now, of course, they're massive because of, what's his name off the telly? I've forgotten his, Richard Osman, whose first book I read and found bloated and constipated, and it was all right, but it wasn't all that. I'm used to the people who write cozy mysteries who've done them for years, who are expert in the genre and can turn them out like Billy O. And so in 2007, we went to New York, and I found the bookshops that had lines and lines of these series, all beautifully colourful and really kind of wittily covered. Slightly twee, maybe, slightly whimsical, but I'm all right with that. This is one about, it's Mary Jane Maffini's The Cluttered Corpse. It's about somebody a personal organizer, somebody who declutters people's houses. A brilliant character to go in and find clues, of course. I don't think I've read more of this series. There were certain series that I just fell in love with and read as many as I could get my hands on, like the New York Coffee Shop Mysteries by Cleo Coyle. That was a big deal. Others I just dipped into, and this was one of them. I love the fact that they all include recipes, or in this case, organising tips. I don't need anybody to help me organise anything. I like the chaos I create. again, these are organised in terms of colour on the spines of my rainbow shelves, so we zigzag across genres, but that's how I'm happiest. Larry Niven's Ring World. Now, this is a beautiful, strange science fiction novel about a world that's a ring, a circular ring. So you can see in the sky the other side of the world kind of floating above you, or spinning above you. That's what it's doing. He creates wonderful aliens, I remember. And I went through a phase of reading the science fiction of the 60s and 70s in context and putting them together. And, because I'd read Frank Herbert and Anne McCaffrey as a kid. But then when we moved to Manchester, there was a wonderful bookshop in Withington, it's long gone, called the Guardian Bookshop. And we used to go there, and there was a back room filled with paperbacks, all for, £1.50, £1 each. And they were clearly people's collections gathered up and mouldering away in kind of psychedelic profusion. And I would gather up armloads of classic 60s, 70s science fiction. And Larry Niven was one of those people from that time. There's a Cleo Coyle, Coffee House Mystery. That series is bliss, and I recommend it wholeheartedly. What else? I shall stop soon. There's a Hardy Boys, The Secret of the Caves. See, the covers were marvellous. They were very, very collectible. That's what's important, I think. Another series, another person that I started reading when I read Cozy Mysteries was Yasmin Gale-Norn, who writes still, spooky, supernatural mysteries. And I read a fantastic series by her. And that developed into further series that she did about witches, kind of like in the shadow, of things like Charmed and Buffy, but more supernatural, more dark and a bit sexier. And I adored what she did. This is the Otherworld series. I was going to talk about more, but whoops, I've already filled too much time. There's the Belgariad, book 1. Pawn of Prophecy by David Eddings, and I think Lee Eddings was his wife. This is a series I read at 15, and I remember coming to the end of book 2 or book 3, looking at my watch and thinking, there's 10 minutes till the shops close, and I ran downtown in Newton Aycliffe, while we lived, to get to the newsagent to buy the next book before the shops shut, so I could read it that night, and then buying the next one the next day. That was kind of summer holidays when I was a teenager. That's what it was like, that kind of, I must get to the shop to get the next book in the series. Blissful compulsion, really. Anyway, that's enough for today. Talk again soon.